Microbes in the Planet, Chapter 1, Topic 1.2. In this topic lecture, we're going to talk about how prokaryotes, or cells without a nucleus, are found all over the planet and in all environments. They are the earliest life found in the fossil record, and we're going to talk about how cells change over time. Specifically, we're going to talk about what are prokaryotes. Prokaryotes are ubiquitous, and evolution. At the end of this recorded topic lecture, you should be able to meet the following objectives. Be able to describe the role and impact of microbes on the Earth, explain the theory of evolution, be able to define theory as it is used in the scientific community, and explain why the theory of evolution is still called a theory. Let's talk about what are prokaryotes. In the fossil record, prokaryotes and evidence of prokaryotic communities appeared millions of years before eukaryotic cells were seen. This evidence are fossilized stromatolites, such as are still being found, formed in shallow tropical bays. Some eukaryotes, or cells with a nucleus, eventually became multicellular. Multicellular organisms include humans, trees, mushrooms, any organism that is made up of many types of the same species of cells, so to speak, all working together to make up the whole creature. And speaking of trees and grass, like in this lovely picture, prokaryotes were the first to photosynthesize. We see evidence of them using the power of the sun to produce sugars in the fossil record far before algae or plants showed up in the fossil record. And without photosynthesis, we wouldn't have oxygen in the air to breathe. Prokaryotes still do the bulk of photosynthesis on this planet. Prokaryotes are the only organisms that can take nitrogen out of the air and convert it into fertilizer for plants. We'll be learning more about that process in later chapters, but for now, you have proteins and DNA in your body because a nitrogen-fixing bacterium, such as those that live in the roots of peas and other legumes, pulled nitrogen out of the air. Bacteria are one of only 2 or 3 types of organisms that can digest cellulose. If it weren't for them, the earth would be smothered in leaves and dead trees. Cows actually don't digest the cellulose in the grass that they eat. The bacteria and other microbes in their guts do that. And if cows couldn't get nutrition from grass, their predators, including humans, wouldn't be able to get nutrition from them. It's the circle of life. Yay, prokaryotes! Prokaryotes are ubiquitous, which means they are found in every environment. So, in other words, you name a place, there are prokaryotes there. Sedimentary rock a mile below the surface? Yep, there are bacteria there. Boiling hot springs that will fry your skin off if you fall in? Lots of bacteria living very happily. Glaciers in Antarctica? Full of prokaryotes, probably living off of penguin poop. Inside the dark and relatively airless environment of your intestines? You better have the deluxe assortment of them in there, or you are currently pretty ill. Yes, prokaryotes predate us, do cool things, and live in more places than humans. How did they get to be so diverse? To answer that, we're going to be discussing the theory of evolution. Specifically, we're going to talk about what is the theory. We're going to talk about a bacterial example of evolution, and we're going to talk about what we mean by theory in the scientific community versus everybody else. Evolution is the name scientists use to describe the adaptation of living organisms, including microorganisms, to their environment. Population of organisms have many genetic differences. To illustrate this, just look at your own family. You probably don't look just like your parents or your brothers and sisters. At least I don't. But you probably look more like the members of your family than you do most of the people on campus. And yet, we are all humans. We have variation. Nearly every species shows this same type of variation or genetic differences, like our zebras here. Some individuals in a population, we'll use the zebras as an example, do better in their environment because of their genetic differences. They get more food, they may be healthier, they avoid predators like our lion here, and they end up having more offspring. They may pass those favorable genetic differences onto their offspring, so the population begins to have more of those genetic differences. the population becomes better adapted to the environment. Using the zebra example, zebras over time have become faster and faster. At least that's the evidence in the fossil record. Of course, the environment can change. This can lead to individuals with unpopular genetic differences becoming better suited to the new environment. They would then pass on their genetic differences to the populations, and the population again would change. All species adapt to their environment, or they die out and become extinct. We can see evolution or adaptation of populations happening all around us, especially in a bacteria population. Here's one example of evolution in action. When antibiotics were first introduced to populations of pathogens like Staphylococcus aureus, that's a staph infection, very few individual bacteria were resistant to those antibiotics. An antibiotic like penicillin would be given to a patient with a staph infection, and they would be cured in a matter of days, sometimes hours. Because of this, many scientists thought the age of infectious disease had ended with these miracle drugs. Unfortunately, it wasn't long before some patients had staph infections that were not cured by penicillin. In the Staph aureus population, there had always been a few individuals that weren't killed by penicillin. Those individuals generally grew more slowly than the non-resistant individuals. In other words, the non-resistant bacteria were better adapted and more common until we humans changed their environment by using penicillin. Then the resistant bacteria had the advantage and increased in numbers. Now it is more common to find penicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus in staph infections than it is to find penicillin-sensitive Staphylococcus aureus. Evolution in action. Now let's talk about the term theory. First, let's talk about how scientists use the term. Scientists use the term theory to mean an idea that has a lot of data to support it, that has predictive value, and hasn't been disproven. How non-scientists use the term is something you're going to try out or an untested idea. In other words, the exact opposite. Isn't English great? In this class, we're going to be using the scientific meaning for the word theory. So the theory of evolution is the idea that explains the vast variety of life we see in the world, especially among bacteria. It predicts what we're going to see. For example, it predicts that when we come up with a new antibiotic or treatment, it is only a matter of time until the populations of pathogens changes or adapts and becomes resistant to that new antibiotic or treatment. I love it when I see the statement, and bacteria are unlikely to develop resistance in scientific papers, because it hasn't happened so far. The theory of evolution has been successful so far in predicting the development of resistance. Well, that's it for this topic. Having listened to this recorded lecture and having read the textbook, you should now be able to describe the role and impact of microbes on the earth, explain the theory of evolution, be able to define theory as it is used in the scientific community, and explain why the theory of evolution is still called a theory.